welcome. Today we are going to take a look at the thermal imaging setup. It's the original one where we're going to look at temperature detection and VCA analytics, not the fever detection solution that is being touted around on social media. We will be doing a separate video on that. That will be on Monday. There's a reason for that, so bear with us. That will be done on Monday, but today is still the original one. So wherever you are in the world and whoever you work for, wherever you're located, all I want to say is big thanks for joining us. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world currently, and this is probably not the most important thing, but we at DVS really value that you are joining us. Please stay safe. Do whatever you can to help others where possible, and as long as it is safe. And together we will get through this. So a big thank you. And I know there's a lot of people adjusting to this new life. I'm quite lucky. I spend quite a lot of time in front of the computer, so it's not so new to me. But for those of you that are only just doing this, massive kudos to you. So what we're going to do is go through the thermal imaging cameras. Like I said before, the audio didn't work. I've got 2 cameras set up outside that are on the building, which I can show you, talk you through, walk you around, etc. I plan to keep this sort of 45 minutes to an hour because I know there's a lot of things that you guys want to get on with. We have got some DVS staff on here. I've got my sidekick, Reese Larson. Reese will try to answer any questions as they appear. He's the Quizmaster General. Thank you to Reese. He's home working. He will do his best. He's very good. If he can't answer anything, he'll compile a list of questions and I'll try and answer them at the end. Other than that, please email us at webinar@dvs.co.uk where we can help with any suggestions, feedback, future webinars, or any outstanding technical questions. Okay, so moving on, for those of you that don't know Hikvision, we do a lot of thermal imaging products. So I guess a lot of you can already see my screen. So if I minimize this screen down, I've already got a brochure that Hikvision have made, the Hikvision Thermal brochure. Within the brochure, there's some basic principles of thermal cameras, how they work, wavelengths, etc. Quite interesting. Not too technical, so I'll send this out after the webinar. We've got all your email addresses and we'll pass any relevant information on to you. So you can guide yourself through this. It is actually quite a nice read for those of you that like this kind of material. What you will find in there is a list of all of the camera models that we actually sell now. This changes rapidly. There are fever detection ones that have been added since this list was compiled. They look like the turret or bullet camera, so the form factor is the same. They've got a different analysis engine and higher accuracy, but you can see we've got a thermal camera that suits most applications, whether it's thermal only or bispectrum. And by bispectrum, we mean thermal with a day-night camera on there. And we have 2 models of that. We have a 2 megapixel model or the 4 megapixel day-night camera. And you can actually do image fusion on some of them, where you can overlay the day-night image into the thermal to enhance the detail in there. I don't really like it, if I'm honest. I'll show you what it looks like, but it's not really my cup of tea. It looks cartoony, but you can do image fusion on there. But you can see there's a product for every scenario. PTZ smart tracking, so the thermal detects any movement and it will lock the PTZ onto that movement and track it. And then we've got DAITECH rated stainless steel, high-end thermals, long distance, a handheld, box camera. We've got the automation thermal stuff, and the handheld rifles, binoculars, and modules, etc. So the list is extensive. There is a product for every scenario, and it does get added to a lot. So anything out of here, please let us know. Okay, so moving on, for those of you that have used thermal imaging in the past, you're going to be quite familiar with what you're about to see. What we will start with, we've got 2 models fitted here. So on the outside of the DVS building, we've got, this is a fixed lens, high resolution thermal imaging unit. So it's thermal only, and it's the higher res HD 640 model. So there's 2 variants in this model range, a high res and a low res. I like the high res, but obviously the cost is more, but you get more detail enhancement in there. But if you're looking at for protection purposes only, for perimeter protection, then you can go for the low res and choose the applicable lens size that will cover the area with the analytic capabilities that you require. It's quite important that if you are selecting a camera for analytic purposes outside, that you use the thermal design tool, which I have here. So we'll go back to this shortly, but the thermal design tool freely available online. It's embedded in our price list, but there is the link, and we can send this link to you separately if you like. But you can actually import a map like we have here of DVS. You can put the scale onto the map. So either postcode and do it, or drop a map into it and scale it. And you can actually drop cameras into the field of view, which will show you the applicable detection area you'll get given from a given camera view. You can adjust it, whether it's behavior, fire detection, or temperature measurement that you're looking to achieve within that field of view. So if you're looking for temperature measurement, it's yellow. Behavior analysis, it might be red. So you can see that it'll change. So you get a really good overview of what the detection area will be like, plus more importantly, what your dead zone is. For those of you that don't know, with the thermal fixed lens, they generally start at a higher value. So the one you just looked at was a 7mm. We do, in the eco range, we do smaller lens sizes. But the higher the lens size, so when you go up to your 10s, 15s, 25s, 35, 50s, that dead zone will increase. Whilst the monitoring distance will increase exponentially with it, the dead zone in front of the camera will also increase, which means you become very vulnerable in that area. So you've got one or two things you can do. You can either put an eco thermal underneath the camera to protect that immediate area at a much lower cost because the distance is much lower anyway, or you can back it up with, say, a PIR detection that's linked to the camera input. So there are ways around it. Just be very conscious that there is an effect of increasing the lens size also increases that dead zone coverage. But again, I've done a separate how-to video on how to use this map. Really useful. We'll send you a link to it. It's a complete walkthrough, but this tool is very, very good. It produces a PDF, which you can produce to your customer, which shows them the area coverage, what the detection pattern is going to be like, and more importantly, makes you look very, very professional, and you can embed your own logo into that. So very useful tool when you're using thermal products. Okay, so back to the thermal product itself. So nice day outside. Not much activity as you can expect given the climate. So again, very empty car park today. But if I go into configuration, I will show you. This is the model number. So it's the 2166, the high-res fixed lens thermal with the 7mm lens. The 7mm in the fixed lens bullet in the professional range is the lowest we can do, 7mm. If you want a wider field of view, you can use it. We do it a sort of 3mm and a 6mm, but they're in the economy range. So the 7mm is the lowest that we can do. And then we go from 7 up to 50, 7500 even. And the form factor of the bullet will change on that basis. That is the latest firmware as of today. It's very important that the thermal firmware does get updated, and it does improve lots of processes and adds functionality within the thermal itself. So it's quite important to keep that up to date, but that is on the latest one today. Okay, so standard web browser function. So if you know how to use the web browser function, you're not going to be struggling at all. The one thing you do need to be conscious of, in the VCA resource type, there's actually two selections. What will you be using this camera for? Is it temperature measurement and behavior analysis? And the behavior analysis is the VCA, so line crossing, intrusion, etc. Or are you looking to use it for temperature measurement and fire detection? If you select fire detection, the camera will reboot and you lose the ability to do line crossing, intrusion, etc. But it will do a fire source detection. So if a fire is created within its field of view, within the parameters that are set, it will alarm as if it was a VCA. So same process, but it looks at a different set of parameters to what the VCA would be looking at. So a really, really good device. What I would say is we do two versions of the professional range. There's this range, which is the 2166. We also do the T model, which is the accurate temperature model. So these models, although I'm doing temperature measurement through these models here and behavior analysis, the accuracy is only plus or minus 8 degrees either side. The T model takes it down to plus or minus 2 degrees. So if the temperature measurement and fire detection is a critical factor for you, I would probably look at the T model. If it's VCA, then this model is absolutely fine. For the fever detection stuff, that's a different algorithm again, that we reduce the accuracy because of the distance is so short. It's depending on the lens size, whether it's a 3mm or a 6mm, we can do up to 1.5 meters or up to 3 meters. So the distance is really short, hence why the accuracy is so high. So with the fever stuff, if you are interested, the default accuracy is at 0.5 degrees. But if we use our black box heat emitter unit. With that, it'll bring the accuracy down to 0.3 degrees, but there is a cost associated with that unit. So the cost to get the 0.2 enhanced accuracy might be something that you don't want to do and you want to offer the cost saving function instead. But that'll be a separate video on Monday, so keep an eye out for that. But there we go. So temperature measurement. So when we look through this, you'll see the temperature measurement. You might look at it and say it's not that warm at DVS. There are some mitigating factors in there. And it does depend on the setup and what you're looking at. And of course, it is plus or minus 8 degrees accuracy. I'll just wet my whistle. So it's very important that you actually set that VCA configuration in the first instance. The camera will reboot if you change the mode. Okay, moving on. So video and audio, the day-night camera is set as standard. If you've got the dual eco model, the dual thermal, the day-night camera you set as standard, that's irrelevant. With the thermal, we can only go up to what we say is a maximum HD image of 720p. Even though it's not a 720p image, it sort of tries to upscale it slightly. So I always just set it as the maximum. H.265, we support that. And then display VCA info by video or by player. Now I always change it to video, not by player, because it adds a little bit of detail into the actual video as you're watching it. So I increase that to video and click save. It's got audio, etc. If you've got a camera that's got audio and alarm inputs, all of the standard functionality like that will be supported as long as the camera supports it. And another thing is if you're using this with third-party systems, then you can enable the metadata for the VCA and temperature measurement. Okay, so if it's outside of a Hikvision environment, you would enable the metadata settings so you can enable pulling that information off via the data stream. Pretty straightforward. Moving on to image, what you've got in display settings is the background correction or manual correction. I'm not going to do that because it changes the mode on there. But basically, if you've got defective pixel correction, is DPC, you can actually select that and try to correct any defective pixel. So the way to describe this, if you point the camera up to the sun and you can get some sort of what appear as dead pixels, you can actually try to correct that using that process. You shouldn't really point a thermal camera at the sun. I know they can be corrected, but it's not advisable to point it directly at the sun, considering that's the largest source of IR in our university, the DVS university in our universe. Every known object, for the scientists out there, and before somebody pulls me up on it, every known object in the universe does give off a radiation of some level. So we will be able to detect that as a heat source at some point. Each camera can detect different ranges. So the T model has a different temperature range to this standard model. So this standard model has a set temperature range of -20 to +150 degrees. The T model can go up to 550 degrees. So you've seen places like furnace control and stuff where, or coal making process, steel making process, and that kind of stuff, of like factory foundries. We use them in that because the temperature range of this product doesn't suit. So by default, you need to use the T model anyway. So there's some background information on that. Image enhancement. So for those of you that haven't seen a thermal imaging camera before, you can change the palette scheme. What you'll notice is when the palette scheme is white hot, you actually get more options. If I change it to black hot, that disappears. But everybody's got different tastes. And sometimes the environment will dictate what is better for the camera, because there are some environments where white hot, it just doesn't give you the contrast needed and you need to change the color scheme. So changing this one to black hot, you can see there's still enough detail in there. But again, it's down to sometimes personal preference. But under white hot, you do get the ability to do the palette control. So what you can do with this, if you want to, and this is all dependent, you can actually do above colored, between and below. So if I choose, just to show you, if I put above colored, anything above 15 degrees is red. Anything in between 8 and 14 is orange, and then leave that. Click save, and you can see what it does. It was only a quick demonstration, but it stamps all over the video. But it might be useful if you want to highlight hot areas within the video itself, so you're instantly attracted to that area by the actual color indication in the video. Now you can only do this on white hot. So if that's a function you actually think is helpful to the customer, then you need to use white hot. What I will do is turn this off and bring our image back to normal. But there are lots of other schemes in there, and you can pick the one that's relevant to you. I'm going to go back to white hot because it is my favorite. Okay, so we've got DDE. So the DDE is like an image enhancement level, so that you can set it to normal or off and then adjust it. The default is normally fine. You shouldn't really need to adjust that, but if you do adjust it, it enhances the brightness of the image. So some areas or some applications you may find you need to adjust that. And then you've got your standard settings past that. OSD, we don't need to go in, but you just set your OSD, your name, date, time, format, etc. Or you can turn them off if you don't like them on there. Privacy mask. So if you've got an area that is sensitive and you want to mask that off, again, use the privacy mask. You can have picture overlay if you want to embed your logo. So you want to put your logo, or maybe a set of instructions. So it could be a JPEG that you import there says, if you see any red areas, please contact security or contact process control. So it could be a simple set of instructions that the customer sees on their video that they then follow. Something as simple as that. And then you've got the DBC control, which I'm not going to do because it creates lots of things that go on in the background. But again, if you want to know more about the DBC, we can either send you the manual or I can do a separate video on that. And then the VCA rule display is the normal pre-alarm and alarm temperatures. You can actually adjust it. If you don't like that color, you can actually adjust it if that's your preference again. Okay, so moving on into events. So we've got the basic events. So the thermals will support motion detection, video tampering, alarm input, alarm output, and the exception rule. So again, standard formats. Into the smart event, we've got audio exception and scene change detection. So we can enable those. Under here, if we change the operating mode to fire detection, under smart event, you'll see the dynamic fire source detection tab appear, and that's where you go and set that up. If I enable that now, the camera will reboot and we'll be sat here for 3 to 4 minutes waiting for that to happen, and my camera calibration will be lost. So we won't do that. So storage, if you put an SD card in the camera, you can set up the storage and capture as needed. And the VCA, so the VCA is quite important. That's why a lot of people will be buying this product for the VCA. The intelligent analysis, and the amount of times I've dialed into customer sites and they're not getting the results from the thermal. They buy a thermal camera, fit it, and expect it to solve all of their false alarm issues, or at least give them no false alarms, or et cetera, et cetera. I dial into the product and they've set up the intrusion area or line and the parameters, and they haven't calibrated it and they haven't enabled intelligent analysis. It's really important that you enable intelligent analysis in the product. That turns the engine on effectively. It's like buying a Porsche and putting a Ford engine in it. There's nothing wrong with Fords, I drive one, but that sort of analogy. So turn the intelligent analysis on. That's how the product will give you the best performance. And then we've got some additional options. These are not mandatory, but display VCA info on stream, display trajectory and how long that lasts for. Now the trajectory is when an object moves through the field of view, it puts like a contrail behind them, and how long that contrail stays behind the object when it's in the field of view. The default is 10 seconds, but you can actually increase that all the way up to 30 seconds or reduce it to 5. Really helpful, because on playback, or if you're getting false alarms in the video, you can see where objects are tracking. If there's a false alarm, where it came from and what it was, so it helps you build that process better, and the filter rules. Or if people are moving through the scene or vehicles, it allows you to see where they're coming in and where they're going to. So it is quite a handy feature, but it does stamp over the video. Okay, so display target info on alarm picture and rule picture, just turn them on, and the rest are default, so click save. Camera calibration. This is really, really important. I can't stress how important this element of the setup is. This is the part that will really give you the best results. Again, without calibrating the camera, it will work. The camera will function out of the box, but it doesn't give you the best results unless you've turned the intelligent analysis on and you've enabled camera calibration. So the way this process works, and I'll do it on the eco-thermal that we've set up. I don't want to do it on this because I've already fine-tuned this one. But if I enable camera calibration and click start, it will then put it into calibration mode. You then zigzag across the image away from the camera and then back to it. click stop, and it will say that it's got enough detail in there and the camera is calibrated, and then you click save. You can see it will give you 4 reference images across the field of view, which it will use against in the intelligent analysis first database to check whether the alarm is valid or not in that instance when you're setting up the VCA process. So you can do this manually. We've had a couple of sites where they've put it in an area that's sterile, that is not accessible for some reason, where there is a lot of bush in there, you're just not allowed in there, whatever the reason is. So you can do it manually. If you can't calibrate it automatically, which is the best process, you can do a manual calibration. So you click camera calibration, click manual, and then you can actually put reference sizes across the image and use that as the calibration manually. There is a document that shows how to do this manually for human and vehicle detection. But don't fear, if it is in an area that you don't have access to, we are still able to manually calibrate it. But the manual calibration process or the automatic one, you have to do it. Please, please do this process. It will save you a lot of headache, and it will save me a lot of headache. Okay, I'll show you the process quickly on my Ecothermal because it's pointing towards the front door. I don't have that far to walk. Okay, so shield rule. This will enable you to draw an area of no detection, for instance. So if this is outside the compound and I wanted to draw an area of no detection, so nothing in this area is to be detected because it's not my compound, I don't need the alarm, click save, and that will shield the analytic from any activity in that area. So again, further enhancing the product's stability. Okay, moving on to the rule section. So by default, no rules configured. So when a lot of you might ask the question, under smart event, you're used to using the intrusion and line crossing within the smart event tab. In our high-end products that have got the analytics built in, like the VCA engines, you need to go into the VCA submenu, and you set the rule up here. And how this works is very simple. Add a rule. If I want to add a intrusion box, so we'll call this intrusion box. Select the rule, line crossing intrusion, entrance exit. So we'll say intrusion. So we've got duration, how long that person has to be in the box. So we'll say 3 seconds. Sensitivity of 50. And do we want to detect human or vehicle? Or all targets. So I'm just going to concentrate on human and vehicles, but you could change it to all targets, human or vehicle. Okay, and now we're going to draw our area. So I'm going to say in this area here, that is my detection area. It's inside the DVS compound, nothing outside. We put a shield area there already, and they're the parameters to follow. You can enhance this by filter by pixel, or you can do a global, there's a global option. So if you've got many, many rules, you can do a global pixel filter, which will apply it to all rules. But you can further add to this by clicking on the filter by and selecting the appropriate parameters. But this is where you start, and it does work very well when you spend a little bit of time to do this. The beauty of thermal analytics are there's very little detail in the image because obviously you can see there's no color in there. So the analytic performs very stably outside. That's what I was on about with the trajectory. It's picking a moving target up outside, and that gives you that contrail. So you can see that's what that trajectory contrail is. So you can see the movement through the image, and then 10 seconds later, that trajectory will go. So if you spend a little bit of time and get this process right, it will really, really work for you and your customer. If you rush it, you'll be spending more time on this and involving people past that. The good thing about the thermal imaging product is you can actually remotely adjust this. So if you're using PIR technology or some other sort of external detection technology, you may not be able to adjust that externally when you're at home or at the office or from an ARC. This you can. We'll be able to web browse into the NVR, and from the iSeries NVR, you can still adjust the parameters for the VCA. So you don't even have to get to the camera directly. The initial process is done at the camera, but then the iSeries NVR will allow you to adjust this remotely. So as long as you can access the NVR, you can adjust the parameters for this area. So you can reduce the area, increase the detection time, the sensitivity, etc., etc., etc. So a really, really useful way of dealing with false alarms remotely and manage them without having to keep going to a site. And in this environment, moving forward, it makes complete sense. So I'm going to save that. Okay, done. And you can add more than one rule. So if I wanted an intrusion, a line cross, it's not just limited to one. So I could say a line cross, and then bidirectional, human and vehicle, filter by pixel size. So I can draw the line here. So anyone coming across the compound into it that way. And then you can actually draw maximum and minimum object sizes. So you could do this instead. If you want to do filter by pixel size, you can simply do it that method instead. So either way works, but just spend a little bit of time on it, fine tune it, click save, and apply the appropriate actions. Arming schedule, so default is 24/7. Each one can be set differently, but if you want it to be followed on a schedule, fine. If you added it to an I-series NVR, you can use the one key disarming on the NVR, which will stop the alarms going to the arcs. You don't need to do it on the camera. The NVR will stop that process naturally. And then the alarm linkage, if you are using the camera in isolation and not through an NVR, you can actually trigger what the camera does in isolation rather than through the NVR. So if you're using a recorder, the recorder would handle it. If you're using a camera standalone or with a third-party system that doesn't allow for the full integration, do it from the camera. All of the cameras can be added to the Hikvision app as well. So you can actually receive notifications directly to the app on a VCA or a temperature detection alarm. So it becomes a very, very powerful unit. And then under advanced configuration, you can set detection sensitivity, background update, minimum target size, etc., etc. Now, once you start adjusting these, in the manual, it does tell you what they sort of do. What I would say is if you are getting problems past the initial setup, contact us or your distributor or Hikvision, and they will help you. You don't really want to start adjusting these parameters, not at the start. This is when things aren't working out quite as we thought they would, and we can adjust some certain parameters, like the optical axis movement. We can adjust that. So the optical axis movement, the maximum VCA distance is achieved when an object moves across the image, not back and forth. So if an object is moving towards the camera or away from the camera, so it's looking down, say, a fence line, and they're walking up and down away or toward the camera, the distance decreases because of the way the optical axis movement is calculated. But if it's moving side to side, then you can get your maximum VCA distance. So we can adjust parameters to account for that. But again, any questions, please ask. And then single alarm mode is, if you tick single alarm mode, it will only generate one linkage action per object detected. If you don't tick that, it'll keep re-alarming, and it could send you 3, 4, 7 alarms for the same object as it's moving through the scene. The safe option would probably be to leave it unticked, because if the first one doesn't get through, others will. But you can adjust that and make it single alarm only. And then you've got scene mode is general, distant view, or leaves interfered. So general is like where you just saw there, like a general open compound view, for instance, car park, that kind of thing. Distant view is if the target you're trying to detect is at the furthest point of the camera. So then turn it to distant view, and it changes the algorithm, how we sort of interpret things better for that application. So distant view is for the objects that have been detected at the furthest parameter, peripherals of the image. And then leaves interfered view is if you've got a camera that's fitted next to a tree and it's in the field of view, and there's a potential for that to interfere with the image and the actual VCA engine. I generally use the general one, and then the distant one for the high lenses where we're looking at the really ultra long sort of border protection stuff. And then you can restore defaults in VCA. The global size filter there, you can actually apply that and use the global size filter for the VCA instead of doing it individually, like I said, but we'll not apply that. That's sort of pretty much it for the VCA configuration. What I will do is go into temperature measurement. I'll show you the temperature measurement detection and the VCA detection work. It does show it through the web browser, and it will push it to the NVR, our softwares, and obviously the Hikvision app. So I'll show you that. Temperature measurement. So as this camera is set up for VCA and temperature measurement, I'm allowed to enable temperature measurement. So it's as simple as this. Now, some people don't need the temperature measurement. You can use both. You don't have to use temperature measurement at all. It doesn't affect the VCA engine whatsoever, but it may be beneficial. to use it, or curious more than anything, perhaps is the word. So enable temperature management, measurement, enable color temperature, display info on stream, add, so just tick them by default. The data refresh interval, the default is free, but you can adjust that. It's fine to leave this at free, don't need to keep adjusting it. Whether it's degrees, Kelvin or Fahrenheit, so the scientists in you might want to use Kelvins. And the temperature range, we can only go -20 to 150, as I said. The other product, the T model, we've got a different parameter, which will go up to 550. Again, speak to us on that. Save that. Under the advanced settings, so the default is normal, but I don't find this gives much parameter settings. So first thing I do is go into expert mode. You don't have to be an expert to do this, but I would say please pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. First thing to do is enable a rule. So you've got up to 21 rules here, and they can be an area, a point, or a line. So you can draw an area, a point, or a line across the image, whichever works best for the application you're using. We're going to draw an area because it's just easiest to show you. So enable this and give it a name, so each one can be a unique identifier. Select whether it's an area. Now, the emissivity value, we put in a default value of 0.96. Now this depends on what you're looking at. So the emissivity value should be adjusted specifically for the material or the object you're looking at. Each object will give a different value out. Luckily for you, I've done a little bit of homework and I've got some emissivity values, the most common ones that we find referenced. So human skin, but that would be for the temperature detection, not for VCA configuration. PCB, cement, concrete, ceramics, rubber, paint, wood, asphalt, brick, sand, blah, blah, blah. So my one is mostly brick pavement out in the car park. The default is 0.96, but the actual reference is 0.95. I'll send you this after for anyone who just asked. And it's free. You can go online and Google the emissivity value of like a given object. But you should, if you want the temperature detection to be accurate, if you want the temperature detection to be accurate, then you need to change that value accordingly. If you don't change it, then accept that it might not be as accurate as you think. So I'm just going to change that to 9.5. The distance is how far the distance, like say from the camera lens into the middle of the image. It's about 20 meters. You can measure it with a trundle wheel, but again, the closer to the value, the better it is. The emissivity value and the reflective temperature ones are the most crucial ones. So adjust the emissivity value, get that as close as possible. And the reflective temperature value, if you enable it's default, it's off by default, but you can enable it. Some objects will reflect temperature at a different rate or a different value to what others will. So if you're looking at a set area, like we had a project that was in a steel work, they used it for making stainless steel. They had a given reflective temperature value for the vessel that they were looking at to make the value that we were measuring accurate. So they knew the emissivity value, they knew the distance, and they knew the reflective temperature of the object that we were measuring. So we filled that in, and it made the temperature detection or temperature measurement very, very accurate indeed. So the more you can fill that in for it to be accurate for the scenario you're using, the more accurate you'll get the results to be. Given that this is a plus or 8 degrees minus camera anyway, it's not going to be that accurate. But for the T models and where temperature measurement is accurate, then you need to make sure the information inputted is accurate. It can only be as accurate as the information you input. Okay, sorry for boring you. So we're okay on that. So enable the alarm rule and then click on the little icon, and then this will say, you've got different rules for the different outcomes. So above maximum temperature, so we'll make this simple. So above maximum temperature, the alarm temperature, if it's above 13 degrees, filtering time 3 seconds, pre-alarm temperature is 8 degrees, filtering time 3 seconds, tolerance temperature 3 degrees. And then alarm output or alarm, so pre-alarm output. So if it's the pre-alarm temperature, that's a 1 warning, which will tell you, it'll do to the app email, etc. as well, or the alarm output. So you get pre and actual alarm. So it may be at that temperature, it could be critical mass temperature for something. You have to go and turn it off or turn it on, or isolate valves, and then the alarm is when too late, it's already happened. So adjust accordingly, click OK, and then most importantly, click Save. And that has added our value. You can see in the field of view here, I've already got the ID one, which relates to this area, and it's already trying to measure temperature in this box. What it does is goes to the highest point. So in this box here, you'll see, if I just double click on this, you'll see a red cursor showing us the highest temperature marker within this box. Now it's telling me that that temperature is 39 degrees. It's not, sorry. It's not that temperature. Obviously glass, they all reflect things differently. That's covering a lot of stuff there. And again, based on this being plus or 8 degrees minus, it's not going to be as accurate as you think. What you also remember is that van is made of metal. The sun is on that van now, and it's black matte paint on there. It does get quite warm to the touch. So whilst it's not going to be 40 degrees, if I actually touched it or put a thermometer on it, it would appear a lot warmer than the temperature, the ambient temperature outside. So just things you have to be aware of, that you could get readings that don't actually make sense. But that would be one of them. If I adjust the area accordingly, you'll probably get more accurate. If I go and adjust this area to take that out of it and click Save. You can see it has dropped. It's now gone over to the building glass over there. So let me just do that again. So if I just make it the asphalt, just take all the building references and metal out, you can see it's dropped drastically compared to what the reflective temperature of the vehicle itself. But again, it's still not going to be 23 degrees. So, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's the temperature measurement and the VCA configuration. If I go into my live view, you will see on here, I've got my VCA configuration. So there are my lines, that's my line class, and that's my box. And this is my temperature detection box. The box is red because it's in alarm now. As I set the threshold temperatures were very low to make it go into alarm to prove a point. But if I go back into configuration, go into expert, change this, alarm temperature of 40, pre-alarm temperature 32, click Save. There you go, it's back to green. So if I go here, you'll see it's green. It's outside of the alarm temperature threshold. Now the box green means good. What I will do is go outside and trigger these. So you have to give me 2 seconds. I'll go outside and sort of walk around, and I should get triggers on there. Little handy tip for you. If you bring up, add the camera or the NVR to Height Connect, what you can do is get the image on Height Connect there, or IMS 4500, you get the overlay on there. So when you're walking around, one, you can see the analytic is detected or what temperature is showing. So it's a really useful tool. If you're on your own and you need to calibrate this, add it to your phone, whether it's through Wi-Fi or 4G or whatever, just to do the calibration. If anything, it's really, really helpful. But I'll walk outside now and just walk around. So I'm going to get this done. So give me 2 minutes. For those of you who want to slurp a coffee or a quick wee, now's your opportunity, but just keep watching. I'm not leaving you. I will be back. 2 seconds, guys. Okay, I'm back. You can see I had my phone with me, so I saw, the contrails, you saw the temperature changes, you saw the VC triggers, etc. So yeah, that sort of proved that to you. What I will do now is show you something a little bit different on the Ecothermal. If I show you, let me just stop this. We've got another Ecothermal here. So the dual lens, that's what a dual lens one looks like. Another thing to be aware of on the Ecothermal products is nice wide field of view on the day-night camera, not so much on the thermal camera. They don't match. So for those of you that have been caught out or potentially caught out, make sure you check that the field of view of the thermal will be okay for the application, because a lot of people fit it and then complain to us that they need to change the lens size on the thermal. So just be really careful that you match the thermal to the application, not the day-night camera. Okay, do it that way round, not the other way round. So what we've done here is set up a Ecothermal, 2 megapixel, and again low res. So you can see the difference. If I click, you can see that is a much lower res than the higher res. This is like a Ecothermal is a ultra low res. So it's basically for short range temperature, fire detection or VCA detection. So they are limited in what they can do distance wise. And again, it's not about image quality at that point. It's like 20, 30, 40, 50 meters VCA detection. So for low range external detection to cover like standard buildings, these products are really, really good, really cost effective. Not only do you get the day-night technology, you get the thermal that does the VCA, which is very stable, really powerful, and much lower cost. So worth bearing in mind for those jobs moving forward. And you can adjust it remotely, not like a PIR. So under configuration, if I go to the calibration, what I was going to show you, for those of you that wanted to see the calibration, do you want to see it? This is basically, that is the Ecothermal dual lens, latest firmware. That's the model number, 6mm lens. We do it in a 3mm lens as well. The V1 model, so the V model after the hyphen, is the new sort of GPU-led analytic. So the analytic is more stable and better in this product compared to the older products. There's been some development behind there. So we do a V1 model, which is built in sort of GPU-led analytics, deep in view, or we do a VP model, which is got that technology in there, but you have to write your own software, which is pretty irrelevant for most people on this call, I would imagine, but that is available if you like. Same process, same web browser, same setup. With the Ecothermal, there's no difference really. So once you know how to use one, they all look the same. So under VCA, same stuff, same thing. This one hasn't been calibrated. I deleted the calibration on purpose to show you how you calibrate this. So again, best thing for me to do is get the calibration on, get Hike Connect, get the view up. So I got the view up ready. I'm going to go walk. So this is how the calibration works. Click calibration, click yes, click start. I walk around, zigzag a bit. I'll see myself on there so I know what area it is. And then I come back now. So give me 2 seconds. I'll try. You're back. Hopefully this worked. Yeah, thank God for that. So you saw the way I zigzagged across there. Calibration succeeded. Click save. And the next part we have to do is just untick camera calibration and we're done. So that's how you calibrate it. And then you can set up the VCA, etc. as before. Really quick demonstration if you've got time. So what I did on this one, change the working mode to, if I change it to fire detection, it will reboot. If you've got time, do you know what, we'll do it. Actually, we don't need to. I'll do the temperature measurement one instead. So if I show you the temperature measurement one, we've enabled it, drawn the thing. I'll go and get I was going to get a heat gun, but you saw the temperature anyway. So actually it's probably pretty irrelevant now. I had a heat gun ready, which I was going to go and drag into the car park and set that off so you could see the pre-alarm temperature. And then obviously even a small point like a heat gun would trigger that. But I've already showed it to you, the principle of it on the previous camera. So actually, I don't think that's relevant now. So we'll sort of move away from that. I'm just trying to think of anything else before I catch my breath because I am very, very unfit. Anything else I need to consider or talk about? Let me check my phone because I know Reese was WhatsApping me a minute ago for a question. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Okay, so I got a couple of questions on here. So Reese, thanks for passing these over. It says, is the picture overlay only available on this camera, such as to add logo onto each image, e.g. my company logo? No, there are other cameras available. It's not just the thermal cameras that do that. So quite a lot of our cameras do it now. I can get a list of the full range if you require, but the higher, like the 5 line, 7 lines, PTZs, a lot of them do it. AccuSense, some of them do it now. Not all of the 2-line products do it, but there are a lot of cameras that actually support logo import now. I can get a full list for you if you require, but it isn't just the thermal camera products. I hope that answers your question. Dave, check your bloody messages. Thanks, Reese. I have a question for when you're back. Okay. Yeah, and another one, check your phone. Jake, check your phone. There's a question. I've just answered that question. And then Jake with a really sarcastic text message. Thanks, Jake. Anything anyone wants to ask before we sort of call it a day? I hope you learned a lot about thermal imaging, how it works, how you can apply it, how to get the best out of it. Again, if you need it, you can ask any questions. Please ask the DVS or Hikvision or your sales rep, wherever you are. You know, we'll help out the best we can. The thermal tool, vitally important. Always use that. It makes you look really professional if you get into that, freely available. Imagine putting that in front of a customer with your logo on it or the customer's logo on it. Really puts you in another class, but also gives you peace of mind of what that coverage should look like and what camera model you should use. Reese, just give me the thumbs up on WhatsApp if we're sort of ready to call it a day. I'm waiting for you now. He's typing. Thumbs up, thanks. Okay, well, just from me now, before we end, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to everyone who took the time out to be on this. I know we're in a very difficult sort of environment as it is. We're doing our best to support people. And we've got lots more content coming up over the following week. So please, if you enjoyed this, please join us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment, mention us on social media. Any suggestions, webinar@dvs.co.uk. Like I said, any feedback, any questions, any suggestions, or if you just want to say thank you even, that's sometimes a nice thing to do. Okay, other than that, stay safe wherever you are. Enjoy the day the best you can. The sun is out, and hopefully this won't last that long. Oh no, I have got another one. He's just said stop. How different are these products to the fever detection range? Technically, so this product, the form factor is very similar. They got different algorithms in there. So the fever detection stuff has got different algorithms and a different core effectively. You can change a fever detection camera into a standard analytic camera with firmware. You can't do it the other way around. So yeah, basically they're similar. They're very similar, but not the same. So don't buy one of these cameras and expect the same results as the fever detection stuff. Yeah, that's it then. Now is that it? Is that Reese? So yeah, the fever detection one, we'll do one on Monday. That's when my stock comes in for my personal one, because I gave my one up. It was more important to give it to somebody else. Other than that, like I said, stay safe, guys, and we'll see you for the next one very, very soon. Take it easy. Have a nice Friday, and look after your loved ones. Cheers, guys.